The call that never happened. I was 8 hours into a 12 when dispatch sent me the call. Possible assault in progress. Female screaming. Unfamiliar street name. I asked for the cross streets. Static. Then a voice I didn't recognize came over the channel. Unit 7, respond only. I'm Unit 7. I keyed the MIC. Copy. Confirm address. Dispatch read it back, then added a house number I had never seen on that road. I pulled up the map on the MDT. The street ended 3 blocks earlier. No numbered houses past 420. But the call said 734. I radioed again. Confirm. 734. Static. Then a whisper. Don't make it worse. I stared at the screen. Lisa, my partner, was off sick. I was solo. I told myself it was a glitch and rolled anyway. The night was cold and windless. The city had that silent, empty feeling like it was holding its breath. I turned onto the street. Houses I knew by heart slid past. Neat lawns. Closed curtains. Porch lights like quiet beacons. Past for 20, the pavement narrowed. No more street lights. Only trees and a black shape beyond. My headlights found it all at once. A house. 3 stories. Wood siding gone grey with age. Tall windows blind with dust. A front porch sagging like a mouth with missing teeth. No house like this existed here. I would have known. Everyone on this beat would have known. The MDT still showed the map ending 3 blocks back. My GPS cursor floated in empty space. The call timer kept counting. I announced arrival. Dispatch didn't answer. The radio carried only a low hiss that sounded like someone breathing through a towel. I left the cruiser running with the spotlight angled on the porch. The steps creaked under my boots. The front door stood ajar by an inch. Police, I said. The word died in the cold hall. From the back of the house, a clock ticked too slow. Like it was underwater. The entryway smelled like old water and iron. Wallpaper bubbled and peeled. The air felt heavy, as if someone had been cooking for hours with all the windows shut. Dispatch, Unit 7. I have entry. Possible force door. Nothing. I clicked my bodycam and tested my shoulder MIC out of habit. I didn't hear the second click. The little red light on the camera looked dim, like a dying ember. The hall widened into a parlor. Furniture under sheets. A cracked mirror leaning against the mantel. My reflection looked wrong. Off center. Half a step behind me. Something moved upstairs. A small sound like a foot sliding on bare wood. Hello? I said, and immediately felt stupid. There's no good way to announce yourself to whatever is listening. I stepped onto the bottom stair. Each riser complained like a held breath. Halfway up, my radio popped and I heard a voice. It was me. My voice. Whispering. Don't go up. I froze so hard my knees hurt. I turned the volume down to 0. The whisper kept going for one more word. Please. I went up anyway. That's the job. You go toward the sound. You clear the rooms. You find the screaming woman before it gets worse. The landing was lined with picture frames. All the faces had been scratched away with something sharp. Except one. A little boy with a bowl cut stared out of the photo, eyes wide, mouth a flat line. A door at the end of the hall stood open just enough to show black. I put my hand on it. The wood was colder than metal. When I pushed, the hinges didn't make a sound. Inside, a bedroom. A brass bed. An empty cradle. On the dresser, a rotary phone slept under a dome of dust. From somewhere close, a woman screamed. It was close enough to make my ribs vibrate. I spun around. The hallway behind me looked longer than it had a second ago. Doors multiplied like reflections. I yelled. Police? The scream cut out like a wire had been clipped. Then the phone rang. The rotary phone on the dresser. The ring was wet and slow. Wrong. I picked up the receiver. 911, I said out of habit. No one spoke on the other end. I heard only my own breath. Then a ragged whisper, like someone with no water left. Unit 7, it said. Don't make it worse. I dropped the handset hard enough to crack the plastic. The dial spun 3 numbers on its own. 7. 3. 4. I got out of the room and back to the landing. Every picture on the wall now showed the boy looking directly at me. His eyes were not the same in any 2 frames. In one, too big. In another, too small. In most, just black circles scratched deep. The smell of iron thickened. Something knocked twice under my feet, as if the house had lungs and coughed. I looked down through the gap between the stairs and saw light where a basement door would be. Houses like this always have basements. If someone is hurt and screaming, you check the basement. You always check the basement. Back downstairs, I found the door off the kitchen. It wasn't locked. It wasn't even fully closed. It just leaned into the frame as if ashamed. I put my shoulder to it and went down. The steps were narrower than they looked. I put my hand on the wall and felt slick paint that never dried. At the bottom, a single bulb burned behind a metal cage. The chain hung too low and brushed my hat. The room was larger than the footprint of the house. Stone walls. Dirt floor. Something like a coal furnace, long dead and swollen with rust. In the far corner stood a folding table covered in plastic. On the plastic, a black smear like a wound. A tape recorder sat beside it. The old kind with big buttons you can work with a thumb. It clicked. No one touched it. The reels began to turn. The tape hissed. Then a voice. A woman, crying softly at first. Then louder. Then a hoarse, shredded scream. Then silence. Then my voice. Unit 7. Respond only. I stepped back so hard I hit the post behind me. The recorder clicked again and rewound on its own. The same sequence again. The same scream. The same words. Unit 7. Respond only. Dispatch. I shouted into my MIC. Send back up to. I couldn't say the address. It felt like trying to speak underwater. The numbers wouldn't line up in my mouth. The recorder clicked a 3rd time. This time the scream cut off mid-breath and a new voice came in. A boy's voice. Flat. Patient. Like a child who has learned all the wrong lessons. Unit 7, he said. You always come. The bulb popped and darkness hit like a hand. For a second I saw the glowing filament arcing in the cage. Then nothing. I put the back of my hand against the wall and moved toward where I thought the stairs were. Wood brushed my fingers and then something else did. Cold. Small. Like a child's knuckles. The fingers closed around my hand and squeezed once. Not a pull. A greeting. I yanked away and stumbled into the first step. I climbed fast, missing rungs, my gear clattering like I was full of bones. At the kitchen door, my shoulder MIC crackled to life with a burst of noise that sounded like laughter recorded too slow. The front hall looked shorter now. The porch light from my cruiser's spotlight made a pale stripe on the floorboards. I could get to it if I didn't look anywhere else. So I kept my eyes on that stripe and walked. Something in the mirror on the mantel moved as I passed. It was me. But I was a half-second behind again. And this time my reflection didn't follow. It turned its head and watched me leave. I hit the porch hard enough to splinter a board and crossed the yard in 3 long jumps. My cruiser sat where I left it, engine humming, spotlight steady. I grabbed the door handle. It was hot. Not warm from the engine. Hot like a pan. I flinched back and looked up. The house had no windows now. Just smooth dark rectangles like unblinking eyes. The porch roof leaned closer than it had any right to. Then the porch light turned on. I hadn't seen a porch light before. It threw a cone of yellow over the steps and the door swung wider on its own. From inside came the slow clock and a new sound. A small voice, singing. 3 notes. Again and again. I left. I don't say that proudly. I am not proud of it at all. But I left. On the road, the radio came alive. Unit 7, status. I swallowed twice before my voice worked. Clear. False call. There was a blink's worth of silence. Then dispatch said, too calm. Copy. We show no call for you tonight. The MDT had no incident log. No timer counting up. No notes. Just a dark map with the street ending where it always does. I pulled into the lot by Precinct 3 and sat with the engine off until my hand stopped aching. When I walked inside, Sergeant Reed looked up. He stared at me like he expected a punchline. You look like hell, he said. Busy night. I wanted to tell him the truth. Instead, I typed a paragraph that said nothing. Suspicious person. Unable to locate. No crime observed. Cleared to patrol. When I hit submit, the MDT stuttered. The screen blinked. A new incident report appeared in the queue. Timestamped 5 minutes earlier. My call sign attached. The subject line read, "The call that never happened." I didn't open it. I backed out of the system and went home. I took off my uniform and put it in the washer and sat on the floor while the machine thumped. I left the TV on something stupid and loud and still heard the tape hiss in the silence between commercials. At 2:17 a.m. my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. On the 4th ring I picked up and put the phone to my ear and didn't say anything. I heard a low, slow tick like a clock underwater. Then the sound of a child singing 3 notes. Then a whisper. Not mine. Not exactly. But close enough to punch all the breath out of me. Don't make it worse, it said. Then the line went dead. I slept a little just before sunrise and dreamed of the boy in the pictures. In the dream, he had my badge pinned upside down to his shirt. He kept asking, "Where does 734 go?" Every time I showed him the map, the streets moved like snakes. I took the next night off. Sick time I hadn't earned yet. I told myself it would fade if I didn't go back. Ghosts live on your choices. Don't feed them. Lisa texted around 10. You see the weird CAD entry? I asked which one. She sent a screenshot. The call that never happened. Unit 7 attached. Status, pending report. Then another text from her. Dispatch swears you asked for this one. Said it was urgent. Your voice. I told her my phone was dying and put it face down on the table. It buzzed twice more anyway. I didn't look. By midnight I convinced myself to drive. Not to the house. Just past the street. Just to prove the world was the world. The street ended where it always ends. Sidewalk, fire hydrant, chain link fence, the backs of 2 brick buildings full of sleeping apartments. No woods. No porch. No house. When I put the car in reverse, my rear camera flickered. For a second it didn't show the alley. It showed a porch. A door ajar by an inch. Someone standing just inside the shadow, hand on the knob like a promise. I didn't go in. I drove to the river and sat under the bridge until a barge passed. Its horn blew once and the sound pushed through me like a slow blade. I didn't go back on patrol after that. I took vacation I couldn't afford and offered overtime to anyone who wanted it. On my third night away, a padded envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a microcassette in a little plastic case. Old. Clouded. A scrap of masking tape on one side. In felt tip, block letters. 734. I don't own a microcassette recorder. I carried the taped evidence and told them it was junk mail. The clerk, Mercedes, held it up to the light and said, "My grandma had one of these." She dug around in a drawer and brought out a handheld that looked like a museum piece. "I'm not listening," I said. "Suit yourself," she said, and pressed play. Hiss. A woman crying softly. Then louder. Then a scream that sounded like wet fabric tearing. Silence. And then my voice. Unit 7. Respond only. Mercedes clicked stop. Her forehead wrinkled. "That you?" I said nothing. She ejected the tape. On the clear leader, something had been scratched with a pin. For straight lines. Then a slash through them. 5. There's a thing we say to rookies. The world is deeper than it looks. Basements under basements. You don't have to go down every staircase you find. I tell myself that now. Most hours of the day it helps. Most nights it doesn't. Because sometimes at 2:15, my TV turns itself to an empty input. Sometimes my phone lights up with a blocked number and I hear a slow clock trying to breathe. Sometimes I catch myself in a mirror a half step behind and I know if I turn too slow I'll see me turn too fast, and I know he'll whisper the thing I won't say out loud. Don't make it worse. The worst part is the calls. They keep coming. Not every night. Not regular. Just enough to teach me I'm not done. Last week, Lisa knocked on my door at noon with 2 coffees, and that look partners wear when they don't want to leave you alone with your thinking. She said she looked up old city plats. She said there used to be a house at the end of that street. Victorian. Big porch. A fire in 1987 took the top 2 floors. No deaths, the paper claimed. But a boy went missing the same year and his photo looked like all the ones on the wall, as wrong in a different way each time. Lisa asked if I wanted to drive by daylight. I said no. I told her we don't have to go down every staircase. She sat a long time and then said, "What if the staircase goes up?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Things don't stop just because you stop going to them. Sometimes they learn to come to you. Sometimes a call gets routed wrong, to a number that doesn't exist, from a unit that isn't on shift, about an address the map refuses to remember. Sometimes the caller is you, and sometimes you pick up. Sometimes you listen. Tonight is quiet so far. 9 minutes past 2. I turned my phone face down and took the battery out of my radio and put all the mirrors in the apartment in the closet, and still I can hear a slow clock tick like it is dragging a broken foot. If it rings, I won't answer. If it rings, I'll let the machine take it. If it rings, I'll pretend it's for another Unit 7 in a straighter world. But here's the part one can't shake. When the tape played that day in evidence, between the scream and my voice, I heard something else. Quiet. Patient. A child's voice, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I keep seeing the scratch marks on the clear leader. For lines and a slash. 5. How many times have I answered already? How many times have I already gone up the stairs? How many times have I already said the words into a cold basement with a bad bulb? Unit 7. Respond only. I think the call never happened. I think it keeps never happening. And I think, every night, just after 2:15, it waits for me to make it worse.